Welcome to the Amazing Authorities Podcast, where game changers, visionaries, and category leaders share how they built their brands, platforms, and global influence. Your host is Mitch Carson, international speaker, media strategist, and creator of the Instant Authority System. If you're ready to learn from those who've done it and want to become the go-to expert in your space, you're in the right place.
Christian, you are, I would say, an Ironman of many sorts. Not only have you competed in multiple Ironman competitions, which sets you apart from most people worldwide, you're also an author. And one thing I look at as a man who teaches people how to write and publish and create bestseller campaigns for their books, reviews. And if someone has 82 reviews for his book, that's profound, because most people get maybe 2 or 3 if they're lucky, and it might be mom and dad and a sister that did it begrudgingly. But you have 82 reviews with a rating level of 4.8. Applause. That's impressive. And how did you do that?
Well, it's my second book. My first book, I think I have 300 and something reviews.
Wow.
It's a lot of effort. Writing the book is almost the easy part. Marketing the book, asking for reviews, having a strategy to get reviews, having a campaign around that is the most challenging part from my perspective. And then once you start getting reviews, people think your book is, there's some validity there to it, that it's legit, and more people will buy the book, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, I have found, yes, I think it was Thomas Edison that had a quote. It's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And you said, you mentioned it correctly. Most of the people I have brought through the author process, I say you got to get at least 10 reviews. Then you're more legitimate in terms of perception. Perception is reality, especially in the publishing industry. It's like, what have you done? Are they going to buy your book? If you've got 82 reviews, and it's a recent book, it's only 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago, that you published this after an incident that happened in 2022. So what was the impetus to write this book?
Well, there was that accident you mentioned that happened in 2022. I had a bunch of ideas about the book, and they were solidified during the accident. It was a car accident at a intersection, a pretty high-speed accident. And my girlfriend at the time, she's now my wife, we were behind a truck that got T-boned by a car. And it was a pretty serious accident for the car. The truck seemed to be okay. But when the accident happened, she's a nurse, and I've done a few of these things. I've been trained in emergency response and first aid and things like that. So we both got out of my vehicle. The truck bounced back to hit my vehicle a little bit, but I backed up enough to where it kind of minimized the impact to me. So we got out and helped with the accident. The woman that was in the car got out. The car was totally crumpled. She had glass like falling off of her. She was in shock. She got out and started walking around, but she was looked like her arm was broken. She had blood all over. And my wife went and caught her before she fell to the ground. And then I checked on the driver of the truck, and I asked the only other person at this busy intersection, only one other person got out of their vehicle to help. I asked that person to call 911 and report back to me. And then we kind of helped with the woman and the guy that got hurt. But what was interesting about this incident is it was a pretty big incident, but everything kind of went out of focus to what was right in front of me. And the only thing that woman cared about was talking to her husband. It's like in this busy intersection, that's all she cared about, was telling her husband she was okay. And she didn't have her phone. So she gave me the number, and I called the husband and relayed this situation to her, and then to him, and then put her on the phone. And it was just, it struck me that we get so focused on all these things, but then when it's all down to something simple, like this small moment, that the only thing she cared about was talking to her husband and letting him know that she was okay. And for some reason, that solidified the topic of my book. And I felt like witnessing that and experiencing it was meant to be. And it was like sort of a calling for me to write the book on this subject.
So that was the spark and what will people learn out of your book?
Well, they'll learn about balance. So for me, I'm like, I don't want to label myself as a high achiever, but I tend to set big
I would
goals and
say
go after
so.
them.
I saw your resume. I was going to call you lazy, but I'd be lying. Okay.
Yeah, so I set these big goals. I call them macro level goals,
Okay.
and I in the past I would achieve them no matter what. And when I say no matter what, I'd have blinders on, and I would let relationships fall apart, let my friendships fall apart because I was so hyper focused on that big goal, and I thought that's all that mattered. And then when I achieved the goal, I was like, on to the next one. It's like this kind of rat race. But what I realized is, if I had paid more attention to what was right in front of me and showed up with intention, I may have realized that I don't even want to go after that goal anymore. But I just convinced myself like that's all that mattered. And when I had witnessed that accident, I realized that in that moment, no matter what else was going on in that woman's life, all she cared about was talking to her husband. And it was like, I've been missing the things right in front of my life because I've been so focused on chasing these achievements that it wasn't really fulfilling. So I think it's about having that balance. I'm not suggesting you don't go after a big goal. I'm suggesting you pay attention to the micro moments, the small moments right in front of you as well. And maybe
Do you
those moments will
celebrate your
inform you.
success? Do you celebrate your successes? I mean, is that something that you lacked before and now recognize? I presume you're probably different at your current age than you were at 20.
That's something I've struggled with. I remember finishing the Ironman World Championship in 2015. It took me 10 years to finish to even qualify for that race. And when I finished, I did not celebrate. I was automatically thinking about the next big thing I wanted to accomplish. And after reflecting back on that, I realized that's a problem because I remember standing at the finish line in 2005 as a spectator, and somebody took a picture of me. So I have a picture of me under the finish line in 2005 and a picture of me under the finish line in 2015 finishing the race. It was a 10-year journey, and I thought, man, if I can't even celebrate this, something's wrong with me. So I'm trying to get better at celebrating accomplishments, but it's still a struggle for me.
Who, gosh, if I can ask this question, you might be offended and hang up, but who, who is your emotional motivator? Somebody we wanted to make sure we got recognized by. Could have been a parent, sibling.
Um, I think that's part of the problem. I didn't really have someone like that. I grew up in a very chaotic, unsafe, unstable, abusive childhood. So I built up these barriers around myself, and I think those barriers forced me to sort of tune out emotionally to anything around me, and that's been something I've had to unravel and come to terms with being emotional and being vulnerable and connecting to people at a different level. That's something I've had to unlearn, basically.
Well, the reason I asked that question is I grew up in a, well, it's almost an overused term, dysfunctional family. Father
Mhm.
left when I was one. My mother was unavailable. She was working and doing her own thing, was a very young mother. So I basically raised myself. And the only person I cared, who I got attention from and sought so much validation from, was my Taekwondo instructor. He was a Korean man, no emotion,
Mhm.
except once a year at the Christmas party, he drank. And that's when he all of a sudden, Mitchy, you good fighter. And I got punched in the back, from the hug at the Christmas party. And that was the acknowledgement that I live for every year. Was that, otherwise there was never a compliment. And I was his most successful fighter out in the
Mhm.
tournament circuit. But I lived for that acknowledgement. And that's why I asked, in your case, it wasn't parental for me. It wasn't sibling because I didn't have any. It was my Taekwondo instructor because I respected him so much.
Yeah. If I had to say somebody, it'd be my grandfather.
Okay.
Uh,
We
and
all
I
have
went,
one. Yeah.
yeah, my grandfather, one of the things I uh, regret is when he passed away, I didn't say anything when he was laying there in the hospital bed, and he never saw me graduate from the Air Force Academy. He was in the military in World War II, so that's one of the things I think he would have been proud of, but he never got to see that.
Right. And then, so were you a super achiever in high school also? I mean, in order to get into the Air Force Academy is no joke. And by the way, thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. I have always been super competitive. I've always wanted to be able to beat somebody up, intellectually outsmart them, and emotionally be more stable. So I don't know if that's defense mechanisms from my childhood, but it's made me be very competitive. So I went to school in Arkansas. So I moved from California to Arkansas. So it's quite a bit of a culture shock. It's going back. It's like going backwards in 3 grades. But I was number two in my class in all state football and things like that. So yeah.
All right. And then, so are you still active now, playing sports or competing?
I am not. I have taken a break from doing extreme sports like Ironman triathlon or climbing mountains to focus on building my business right now.
All right. And you built Alpine Security, which is your current business, correct?
I sold that business in 2020. So I'm building Blue Goat Cyber now. That's my current business. We focus on medical device cybersecurity.
Medical device cybersecurity. Can you unpack that a little bit? Because most of us are, as lay people, may not know what that means.
Sure. So we make sure an implantable like a pacemaker slash defibrillator is secure from hackers. Because as an example, Dick Cheney had the wireless functionality of his defibrillator disabled because there was a threat where someone could shock him to death remotely. So we make sure that
Wow.
the things like that are secure. A surgical robot, we're driving towards autonomous surgical robots that can perform pretty intense and complicated surgery on your spine, as an example. We want to make sure somebody can't hack into that and paralyze you. We want to make sure a system that gives you a diagnosis for something, some sort of bacteria, gives you an accurate diagnosis. So if you have something like sepsis where your blood is toxic, you're not going to die from a misdiagnosis. So that's what we do. We make sure those devices are secure and that the innovator can securely get them to the market and they stay secure.
I I would say I am fairly well educated with business. I mean, I have an MBA. I read all the time. Um, I never knew about this particular sector. There are niches unbeknownst to me every day I learn about. This is one that, so for Dick Cheney's pacemaker, there was security around that.
Yeah, there's actually, they made a Homeland episode about it based on his defibrillator. But there's a legitimate attack because the defibrillator slash pacemaker, a lot of them are the same device. They have wireless functionality. So a physician can get diagnostics off the device. They can uh, update the firmware in the device. And that same connection was able to be used by an attacker to put the device in a mode where it just shocks you over and over and over. So he had that wireless capability disabled. And a lot of people don't understand these threats, but
I
yeah,
don't.
they're
I'm
pretty
still.
severe. Yeah, they're pretty
Yeah.
severe.
No,
It's
it's
not like your data
real.
is being stolen. You could actually kill somebody. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know about that. And how did you get into this? I mean, that's not something I would sit down on a whiteboard and think, okay, I'm going to go into the cybersecurity of medical devices.
In my first company, we got a contract in 2014 that involved medical device cybersecurity. And then when I sold that company in 2020, I, while I was working for the parent company, almost died from 6 blood clots. And a medical device, a Doppler ultrasound device, diagnosed me quickly. So if that device was recalled or hacked or gave a misdiagnosis, I wouldn't be here. So I thought this is a calling for me to start a new company and focus purely on med tech or medical device cybersecurity and leverage what I learned from my first company. My first company, that was just a sliver of what we did, but now it's the focus of what we do in Blue Goat Cyber.
Why did you sell it?
I didn't know what I was doing. It was during COVID. 40% of my revenue was from in-person training. And of course, we couldn't do in-person training, so I lost 40% of my revenue. I had to lay some people off. I was kind of freaking out, and I had a number of offers on the table. And out of naivety, I thought the company I sold it to was the right company because their name at the time was Cerberus, which is a three-headed dog that guards the gates of hell. The squadron I was in the military was Cerberus, and I have a patent on a uh, cyber defense simulator called Cerberus. So I thought, okay, there's three Cerberuses, so maybe this is meant to be. In hindsight, it's meant to be for a lot of lessons learned for me, but it wasn't meant to be for a decent opportunity or decent decision.
Okay, so it sounded like there's some regret there for that, but it was a learning experience.
Well, I sold the company primarily for stock. I could never sell my stock when I was in the parent company because all these, blackout periods. And then when I finally left, the stock went from $5 to like 8 cents. So I was selling as
Oh,
much as I could on the way down, but I could only sell so many shares a day. So, I watched what I thought was a lot of money that I had just dwindle away to almost nothing. So, it's the dumb tax you have to pay sometimes. So now I know a little bit better.
and do you want to sell this current business, or you want to build it and keep it, or what's your plan?
My plan is to build it to the point where I can sell it if I want to, but I don't have to sell it because I think what makes a business attractive from a buyer perspective are all good things in a business, systems and leadership and the right market niche and the right fit, the right messaging. But I'm not sure I want to sell it. I might want to just transition to be on the board, have somebody else run the company. But yeah, I want to leave that door open, but it's not necessarily the driver.
And is another book on the horizon?
I have two books on the horizon. One of them is about medical device cybersecurity. That's to help solidify myself as a thought leader in the space. The other one is about, uh, I'm almost done with it, but I'm restructuring it because it doesn't make as much sense as I want it to from having somebody else read it. It's about the story we tell ourselves. And is the story we tell ourselves holding us back or moving us forward and how to change that story? It's more of a focused memoir about when I've had to change the story I've told myself.
And I mean, you've done how many triathlons or Ironmans altogether?
I've done 24 Ironman distance triathlons, probably 75 triathlons altogether.
When are you going to stop being lazy?
um, Probably when I'm no longer breathing. Yeah.
So that's just imprinted in your DNA. It sounds like. And what is the most important component of being a triathlete and a successful businessman? Because I think there are parallels between both.
I think resilience is one of the most important components, and and strength, I guess, being able to handle adversity and being able to bounce back. I think in business that happens every day. Something happens in triathlon. I've been on the side of the road vomiting and had to get up and start walking, and then pretty soon I'm running again. So it's a little bit of both of those.
Labeled as mental toughness.
I think it's mental toughness, but it's also building the muscle of being able to get through things that are difficult. I think we have to put ourselves through difficult challenges. Otherwise, we sort of like just start devolving to where anything seems too difficult to accomplish. So I think it's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the easier it is to make bigger decisions, to get over challenges. The less you exercise it, then pretty soon it's just driving to the store is too big of a chore for you.
And as a business owner, you've had employees, uh, and you've had to lead. Was the military a good training ground to learn how to lead people and employees, or are they completely different disciplines?
I think the military was a good training ground. I went to the Air Force Academy, which is like 4 years of leadership training, basically. Um, and because I was in the military, you you're supervised by a lot of different people, so you get to see what qualities make somebody a great leader, which qualities don't make them a great leader, and then you can adopt your own leadership style. And for me, one of the things that always stuck out is what they taught you in the military is in order to be a good leader, you need to be a good follower. And I think that's important. If you can't follow somebody else or give feedback, up the chain, you're probably not going to be a good leader. So I think that's something a lot of us don't consider. And also from a leadership perspective, a lot of people think you need a formal title to be a leader, but realistically, you can lead your family, you can lead yourself, you can lead your community. There's a lot of things you can lead in. You don't have to have a formal title to be a leader. And I think leadership starts with leading yourself.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I think doing the reps also. And what have you learned as a leader in business? I mean, I can't address the military because I can't relate to it because I wasn't ever in the armed forces. But as a business person, what did you learn early on? And I'm going to share a little bit of my experience too. When you first had an employee, you had to lead him or her to where you are now with your second company you're building and growing.
What I had to learn, and I wrote about this in my first book, is as much as you want somebody to grow into their potential and you want to help lead them in that direction,
Mhm.
it's not everybody wants to do that. I remember this one individual in my first company, he wanted to become a leader in the company, like the COO, help run the company. And I had this discussion with him, and I said, "These are the things you need to do." And he said, "So you're asking me to be someone I'm not?"
Ooh.
And I said, "Yeah, because who you are will not work in this role." And he got super defensive and like quit 2 weeks later. Basically, he did not want to change who he was, but he wanted a higher position in the company. So as much as you want to, somebody says they want something, unless they're willing to actually go through that process, um, you have to come to terms like they're not gonna work with a company. And I used to beat myself up over this because I thought I believe in ownership, and I thought as a leader, I should be able to get this person to see that they want to go here, and here's the gap that they have to close. But at some point, I have to realize they're not willing to close that gap. So there's nothing I can do about it.
Well, all right. I want to address that. People have to grow and change if they want to assume more responsibility and getting out of that comfort zone of being an employee versus a leader.
Right.
Was he just so stuck or was he a square peg trying to get into a round hole? Or he was just not mentally or emotionally ready at that time?
I think he was like a lot of people. We want to protect our identity that we've created for ourselves, and our ego wants to do what it can to protect it. And a lot of people, they want to fight for the limitations. Ultimately be, they and you see this in daily life. I see it all the time. I see people. It's very easy to see, okay, this person just needs to do this, and they could have a much better life. But they find ways to fight for the limitations. They defend their limitations, and I think it's the same thing with this individual, and I think it's the same thing with a lot of people. We don't want to change. Some people, but we want different circumstances, but we don't want to change or do the work.
I'm writing this down because that's a profound statement. People will fight for limitations. They want to stay comfortable and are not willing to do the uncomfortable in order to get to that new level, almost
Right.
breaking through the barriers and
Yeah.
fighting for the limitation. That could be a title of a book, at least an interesting article or a video. Profound, truly. How do you defend your position of limits? Yeah, and then there's limitless thinking.
Right.
So you learned early on that you can't. So that particular incident, did that pave the way for a new way of thinking for you as a leader today? Learning that this guy was not willing to allow his self-limiting beliefs to expand.
It made me, and this is what I talked about a little bit earlier, kind of unraveling my emotions and being connected better to my gut and not just my brain and how I might feel about things. I realized with that individual, when I reflected that if I had paid attention to my gut and how I felt, I knew that person would never be a leader in the company. So now when I'm making decisions, I don't try to logically rationalize things. I try to tune into how I actually feel about the scenario much more, because I realize the times I have actually listened and been able to tune into my gut, I've never been wrong. But the times I try to like tune out of that and like logically rationalize things and give people chances and all this, I've always been wrong.
Interesting. Interesting. Where are you going next? You're going to grow the business. I mean, what's on the horizon for you that you want the world to know? And because once you state it, you'll make it happen. I think you're one of these goal-oriented guys. So if you claim, okay, I want to go here, you're going to make it happen. There isn't, I don't believe you're a man that lives with obstructions that you can manage.
Well, my goal is to become the market leader in med tech, cybersecurity. Ideally this year, I've really got, I think, one competitor I still have to surpass.
Okay.
And then I'm 54.
Huh?
So by the time I am 60, I have a financial goal as well.
Okay. Okay. I get it. And what are you going to do to become the guy? You know, because Avis made a mark in the car rental business. I think you might be old enough to remember. I'm going back to when O.J. Simpson, believe it or not, was running around airports talking about Hertz, which was number one in the rental car industry. And
Yeah.
Avis made its mark being number two. Hey, we're number two, but we try harder.
Right.
So that was their marketing motto, and they really improved because people wanted to support the underdog or the company that was number two. That really dug at the market share of Hertz. And that's a big global brand, so, or at least national brand that
Right.
in that space. So what are you going to do? We try harder? No.
No, I have an origin story
Okay.
about supporting my cause in medical device cybersecurity, because I wouldn't be here. So I'm passionate about it. I have a team that's passionate about it, and I practice putting my company as a guide, and the prospect or the client as a hero in the story. And I think, that comes from Donald Miller's story brand framework a little bit.
Yes.
I think a lot of my competitors don't do that, and they want to just brag about how great they are, where the reality is, for me as an entrepreneur and as someone that a medical device saved, I want to help these innovators bring this new product to market in a secure manner as quickly as they can, because these products are going to alter humanity for the better. So that, and I've made sure, and we get a lot of feedback on this from my clients, I have removed as much ego as possible from my team. That was my first book, was about the smartest person in the room. So my team is not just technically smart, they have emotional intelligence. And I think that is something missing with high-tech industries.
And you've written books. You have the huge advantage of you've written two books that have sold well, because based on the amount of reviews, I know you've got sales because there's a ratio. And that says that's a testament to your commitment to marketing, which is the perspiration component of authoring books. And I know that as a person who's written many books himself. It is absolute commitment after the fact, and pushing beyond the limits. I mean, you've done some great things physically, and there's a commitment. You're in the military, you've had success in business. How are you going to outsmart these people? Are you going to write a book in your space so you are the credentialed expert?
I am writing a book in the space that should be
Right.
done this year. It's not just that. I feel like as a business owner, there are two things you have to master. One of them is marketing, and messaging is a subcategory of that, and understanding your target audience and your niche. And the other is sales. So those are two things I have spent years trying to master, and there's still things I need to know. So I feel like my competitors don't understand those two areas. They try to outsource it, whereas I'm doing it myself. and I can outsource it, but I can outsource it more intelligently. So we are winning on that front with, we have a podcast, we have shorts going out every day, we have social media presence, we're going to events. I've probably done, as a guest, 150 podcasts.
Wow.
As a host, we just released episode 27, but we have like 40 of them recorded uh, in our space. So, and my team, I'm making sure I have the right team that can speak at conferences and everything else. So we have our messaging dialed in. We know our niche. We know what problem we solve. We know how big the problem is. A lot of things that I did not understand in my first business, I feel like I have a good handle on, and I'm in the right space. It's more of a blue ocean strategy because there's not a lot of people in my niche. It's not like traditional cybersecurity where there's a dime a dozen people that can protect your credit card data.
Tell us about your podcast?
My podcast is called the Med Device Cyber Podcast. So we alternate between having my internal team talk about medical device cybersecurity challenges and innovations, and then we have guests on the podcast as well to talk about trends in the industry and where people think cybersecurity is going, where the risks are going, how the industry is shifting as well.
Well, that's highly specialized. I don't. Yeah, I don't think Mr. Rex in the area of pet training would be an appropriate guest. So that's about knowing your market. Yeah, the dog trainer wouldn't be a guest on your show. Wouldn't make sense. It's a message to market mismatch. But I think you've identified. I've taken two companies public and learned that the most important factor, without a sale, there is no business.
That's
The
right.
accountants and engineering, they may think they're the most important people in the company, but it's not. Without a sale, there is no business. Everything starts with the sale. The rest can follow. Now, patents are important. You've got to have a great product to support that. But without a sale, there is no business. Without being the Tiffany box in the jewelry industry, you're not going to outshine them. And I think you've touched on the importance. I mean, I'm a big fan of books as a separator, not just a book, a best-selling book. Using all those badges and buttons are important. I mean, who's got the best feathers as a peacock will get the good-looking gal.
That's right.
Yeah, the female peacock is not as pretty as the handsome peacock. Yeah, the one that shouts the best with the prettiest feathers works. Christian, where can they get in touch with you if they want to be either a guest on your show, because you never know who's in the audience, and where can they learn more about you and have you as a guest on their shows? Because you've given great sound leadership advice today and what it takes in order to be successful as a business owner, marketing and sales.
Right. They can get a hold of me through my company website, bluegoatcyber.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. And my books are on Amazon as well as Audible.
Great. And for a new business person or a new somebody that is looking to grow their business, which book would be the most appropriate?
I would start with either Alex Hormozi's book, $100 million offers.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Donald Miller's book, The Story Brand Framework. Because I think if you don't have your messaging down, which both those books talk about your messaging, you don't know your audience, it doesn't matter how great your product is or how great your idea is.
I would agree with both those recommendations. Okay, now I'm going to go back to which of your books are the best. That's great. You validated outside. I was trying to give you a little shine here, my friend.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I think my first book is more of a how-to book. The Smartest Person in the Room. It's about emotional intelligence and adding that to a highly rationally intelligent staff.
Okay.
I think my second book is a little more purposeful as far as like a lens to see the world through, not just focus on a big goal, but the balance of the two. So I don't know. My first one incorporates a lot of neurolinguistic programming techniques. So I would say my first one might be better for somebody starting a business.
Well, great. Well, because that's the one I'm going to buy. I was asking for myself because I love to read books, and if I can pick up a nugget or two out of it, I'll be grateful, and certainly write a review thanking you for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's more of a personal development book wrapped in the context of business.
Okay. Well, that's how we learn, is through story.
That's right.
And experience of others, through vicariously through the experience of others. And if we're able to embrace some of those changes, I mean, I took the note, as I said, fight for limitations. People will fight for their limitations to defend themselves, to be right and validate where they are.
Yeah, if you fight for them, you get to keep them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And it doesn't allow for growth, though, does it? It allows.
But if you actually think about most of the people in your life, you can hear them on a daily basis fighting for the limitations. It just comes out.
100%. I mean, that's why I wrote it down. I take notes with the nuggets I learned from other people and I'll give you proper credit when I write about this. I'll say I had this interview with Christian, and this was learn about how to fight for your limitations and how that will limit you. Or people who fight for the limitations, you wonder why you're not growing and improving and making more money or having better relationships. You're fighting for your limitations. That in itself could be a whole topic. And it's,
For sure.
I hadn't heard that. That was profound for me today, learning from you. So thank you for being a guest on the Amazing Authorities podcast. You enlighten me. I'm sure people will enjoy this interview, and I'll have you back again when the next book comes out so we can give you a little shine on it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Amazing Authorities podcast. If today's episode inspired you, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps more experts like you rise to the top. For behind-the-scenes access and free resources to boost your authority, head to mitchcarson.com. Until next time, stay amazing.